when it comes to Linux, Linux has adopted actually the Unix process management philosophy, which was well, different in many ways, and although it came before Windows, but it's very elegant. And that's basically that when you create a process, you have two system calls instead of one. You have a fork system call and an exec or execute system call. And the fork basically, whenever you create a process, you use these two system calls to basically make things happen actually. And the fork system call basically creates a copy of the parent process, exactly the same copy of the parent process, and makes the child set up privileges, priorities, and I/O. And that basically means that the maximum privileges, priorities, and I/O privileges that the child can get is actually the one of the parent. So it cannot be, you cannot start from a process that has lower privileges. Uh, you can start a process from a process that has lower privileges that has higher privileges. Basically, the child cannot have higher privileges than the parent. And basically, as it's the same code as the parent, so since you're just replicating the parent, it is as harmful as its parent, basically. Okay? But once you have the fork, then you start exec, which basically brings the new actual executable of the child in memory. So, I mean, you start by replicating the parent, and you take the parent replica, and then load onto that or override that in memory with the actual executable of the child that should be that should run. And that basically means that for that execute, the execute command is the one that actually brings in the new process to into being. Fork takes no arguments as input, as it's just, well, replicate the parent, and while execute takes two arguments, which is basically the name of the program to run and arguments required by the program as an array. So if the program requires new arguments to start in, then this is passed using the second argument. And then the parent can call Unix wait, which basically waits for example, a child, for the Linux child to, for the process child to finish. And you can have also Unix signals, which is basically the system call to send a notification to another process. It's an upcall, the upcalls that we discussed during last lecture. And using these four, you can basically do almost everything regarding process management, including communication between the processes, including what waits for what, locking for different processes, and basically starting new processes from different for different purposes. And this is basically how it looks like. So you have the parent over here, and you fork it, and you basically want to check if you are the parent or the child, because, well, you're running the same code. And basically, when you fork a new process, you have a new PID for that new child process, and the parent basically checks if he is the parent or the child, because they run the same code as we said. And then basically once this, if this is the child, then it runs execute to basically bring in the actual code that will run, and execute brings in the main that will run. So this is how simple process management is in Linux, and it's very elegant. It's actually something that was inherited from the Unix operating system, and it is used by quite a few operating systems in general for process management.